So, this is one of my first. I've always wanted to do r/slash videos, and I would like to see if I can try to find some that are pretty good. So, let's get to it. So, this is my first little video to see if I can actually do entitled people or r/slash videos. So bear with me. This is my first video. I'll get better once I get a lot more. Okay, let's see which one. Customer wants me to pay back my tip. From Weird Non-Human. Uploaded 3 days ago. This happened about a year or two ago. I used to be a waitress in a small pizza restaurant. It was fun. I made a lot of friends and knew most of my customers on a first-name basis. Sometimes the owners of the restaurant couldn't have a babysitter for their son, who was about a year old at the time. So they would set up a crib for the baby on the floor, and I would often make sure he was okay. I didn't have to, because his mum was doing it too. But if he dropped a toy or was trying to crawl out, I'd help him as long as I wasn't busy. This particular night was very busy, but things were starting to slow down. I had a table of 4 middle-aged ladies who were extremely sweet, and they tipped me vigorously. I thought it was amazing. I was grateful, and personally, I thought it was because I was working hard. Fast forward a week and a half, and they come in again and ask where my baby is. I said, "Oh, he's not mine, but probably has a babysitter today." The one woman then get extremely upset with me, saying that I should have clarified he wasn't mine. I said, "I'm 16. If I had a child, trust me, things would be a lot different." She began yelling, saying there's a kid here, that it's not mine because it's very misleading. I told them I wasn't going to do that because people assume a kid is mine just because I help it. My manager, also mother of the baby, overheard the conversation and tried to come to talk to him, but they needed to be escorted out. This story had only come to mind recently when I saw a customer at my certain job. I work at a hospital now. I held such a grudge. I refused care and had to switch my patients around. An entitled guy brings his own food to the restaurant. So I thought I'd post of some of my stories real quick. Sorry if it seemed I'm spamming them out. So quite a few years ago, I worked at a restaurant. As I worked the restaurant gig, I called the chef, whom I'm still friends with. It's not really my story, but belongs to the restaurant. At the time, I was just a line cook. The setting. Our restaurant has a beautiful dining area, but even more beautiful in our panoramic view of the surrounding area and a scenic beach view. We have a deck patio for our guests. You just walk out and dine out there. There is also a higher area if you want to get the full overview, but it's roped off since it's used for events or overflow. Now, occasionally we get a person whose side exit stairway thinking it's an entrance and walks up. The usual, we want to take pictures or sit here with our packed lunches. Normally, we redirect them off the patio or roped off area back into the restaurant. Most of the sack lunch people go with no issue. It was getting so bad, we put signs to redirect and move people. Story. So an entitled guy waltzes in his way up the side entrance with a picnic basket and a bottle of wine. We have a nice variety of wine already available to order. Entitled guy moves to roped off area and sits down. He sets his own table and corks his bottle and proceeds to eat and read a book. For a bit, our team of front house staff members ignore him as they think he's a SAT customer. Once they realise he's not, we send over a server. One of our floor wait staff members walks over to check on him. She notices he's not eating our food nor drinking our wine. She decides to serve this person. First, she asks if he'll move to a seat in the low area, as it will be easier to serve him in the area roped off for special occasions or overflow. He refuses to leave his spot because he is comfortable there. Okay. The waitstaff person decides to go away and 10 minutes later brings him a menu. Why? She's trying to give him a legitimate reason to occupy the chair. She tries subtly hint we are a restaurant. She then tries telling him super nicely we're a restaurant. She's been super nice by not informing management yet. He glances at the menu and rolls his eyes. The waitstaff person walks away and gives the person to read over the menu. The entitled guy returns to his book and personal food. She attempts a second time. Still no dice. She tries for the third time. This time the entitled guy raises his voice and in a broken English way, like when they talk down to a person, "This area is public land. I can sit here as long as I want." He curses at her and she runs back to our kitchen crying. The server room herself is a tiny voiced, petite, timid girl with a very meek personality to match. The chef, another woman, consoles her. Our chef now turns livid. She's ticked, PO'd, and liable to bust a vein, but keeping her cool, contacts manager. Meanwhile, the assistant manager walks to the entitled guy, tries to get him to leave. His reply, "This land is public. I am public American land, and I can sit here and enjoy if I want. I try to enjoy my meal and want to be left alone." Time to send in the big guns. Our manager, a very vocal, strong-willed woman, walks up and talks with him. She comes to the kitchen, ticked but smiling. The entitled guy demanded to see his longtime friend, the owner. He dropped the owner's name, saying that the owner will allow him to sit all day if he wanted. He doesn't really know the owner. The owner's name and photo is on the menu. Guess what? The owner's on site today. So our manager told him he wished has been granted, and his longtime buddy, the owner, is on his way out to see him. As the manager sped off to the owner's office, the entitled guy quickly recorked his bottles and packed his food. He excused himself real fast and straight down the stairwell. Not taking off my mask, you could infect me. So this happened within the last shift. I was working at the front desk, and I was checking people in as per usual when someone walks up to me with sunglasses and a mask on, totally obscuring most of his facial features. I'd also like to point out his mask wasn't covering his nose in any capacity, and therefore, in my opinion, kind of pointless, but whatever. Some of the people who checked in still wear their masks, and I totally respect that. If it makes them feel safer, I even carry a mask with me just in case they want me to put one on for their safety. That's pretty good. Not that anyone has asked, and I am fully vaccinated, but it is somewhat relevant. He asked to check in, and I take his ID and credit card. Of course, I wasn't able to verify it was him with his accessories on, so I asked him if he could take off his glasses and lower his mask just a moment so that I can verify he is on the ID card. Are you asking me to take off my glasses and my mask? Yes, sir. I just want to make sure that you are the person on the ID card, and I need to see your face to do that. You can't ask me to do that. But you could have COVID, and I've never been asked to do that by any other hotel. I'm sorry, sir. but unless I see your face, I can't be sure. I only need to check for a moment. You can verify it's me by the address or name. But I need to match the face to the ID. And well, I can't do that if I cannot see your face. I'm sorry. Have you been trying to spread COVID? You must have been doing this during the pandemic when there was no vaccine. I didn't flinch or feel bad in any way about him accusing us to do that. When I did work during the pandemic, we took all the steps we could to prevent infection. We spaced out our guests, used gloves, gave out masks, and wore them ourselves, and took every precaution we reasonably could so that we could lessen the risk. I only retreated my bag to don the mask as I once had. What's your name? Jan Fink, sir. I know that I'm getting a complaint for this way. So frankly, I don't care if he knows my name. You better let me in right now. I can't do that unless I see your face and check it against the ID set. He's getting upset, and I would normally say visibly, but as the whole story, it's about his features being covered. I cannot see him frowning or anything. And says the line, do you have a manager I can speak to? I've had this question before, and the bosses say that I'm the acting manager if I'm there alone. So, I am not going to compromise the safety or the identity of my guests because of a temper tantrum. So, I am the only one here, I replied firmly. He pauses and demanded that I call my boss. I agree to this because I know he'll be more problematic if I refuse. Plus, I know my bosses pretty well. So I dial them from the work phone and I give them the situation, making sure to include that according to him, not a single other hotel asks for that, and asks if I should let him check in without verification. They get back to me and I recite verbatim, if we cannot affirm your identity with an ID photo, we cannot give you a room as it is a security risk. We are sorry that is an inconvenience, but it is necessary requirement at our property. He grumbles and takes off his mask and glasses, at which I check in literally less than 2 seconds that it's him and promptly check-ins in. Am I wrong here if it's hotel policy, or am I just doing my job? Well, my opinion, it's just hotel policy. Any and every hotel since the pandemic has those kind of things. And it doesn't hurt if you take off your glasses and masks for just a second so they can check you in. And then you can complain in your hotel room and when no one can hear you. This is from r/entitled parents. Stepmom grounds me for being goth. Hello Reddit, I have a tale that made me cry a lot when I was younger. This is another tale about my stepmom. This is ridiculous, so strap in. So to clear any confusion, I am goth. I love horror movies and tend to have a creepy demeanor about me. But unlike traditional goth, I don't have the desire to do most things. The most thing I've ever done is pick a book on basic witchcraft. I love the style because it's comfy and very relaxing. It's really the only thing that makes me feel me. My stepmom, a devout Christian and narcissistic a-hole, has always hated me, primarily because I wasn't her real child. It became really prominent when my sister was born. I was completely forgotten. And I wasn't for like a couple of months. It was 4 years before I was finally acknowledged as a person and not some tool. As she put it, being goth is just a phase and I'll grow out of it. While that may be true, it doesn't make me less of who I am. I didn't always have a love for horror as I do today. I usually cried at horror movies up until I was about 10. One day, I came home from Hot Topic with some new stuff I had gotten. It was to show off to my friends at the start of the new school year. But my stepmom had other plans. She came into my room one night and she started yelling at me. I woke up and this is what ensued. Stepmom. And if you don't throw out those tacky and trashy clothes out right now, I'll burn them. Me? What the hell? What are you on about, woman? I was just trying to sleep. Stepmother. Those goddamn clothes you bought. Throw them out now. Me. Why? Stepmother. Because I said so. And if you love Jesus like I know you do, you listen. I started mechanically laughing at that statement. Stepmother. What's so funny? You're scaring me. Me. Listen, Brooke. I don't care what you want me to do with anything. If I buy it, you have no control of anything I do with it. If I buy a house, I can host parties in it as much as I want to, and you can't do jack. Just leave my goddamn room, and it's like 3 a.m., and I have school. Stepmother. Until you get rid of those sinful clothes and rid of those demon-worshipping games, you're grounded. So basically, I got grounded over being goth over clothes. Can you believe it? Won't handle their dogs. This was a couple of years ago, and I'm glad it didn't happen again. I have 2 dogs since I was 5, and I've been walking them around my block ever since. One day, when I reached the side of the block opposite to my house, I see another dog running around in the street. The street behind the block was pretty quiet, and cars barely drove through it. At the same time, there's a kid running around with the dog, and it's almost twice his size and bigger than both my dogs. The kid couldn't have been 6 or 7. As soon as this dog sees mine, it rushes over. My older dog of the 2 takes this as a threat, and she and the bigger dog starts fighting. I stopped my foot in between the 2 to keep them apart, but the bigger dog just kept coming after, and my dog wasn't having it. After stepping between the 3 or 4 times, the woman on her porch was yelling at me. I assumed she must be the owner of the dog and the guardian of the kid. She was the only person out of her house and on the street anyway. But I couldn't hear her over our dogs viciously barking and trying to bite each other's ears off. Being an apologetic person, I just yelled sorry back at her while her kid just stares, still in the street. My smaller dog started barking too, so I just picked him up, tugged my other dog's leash while fending off this woman's dog, and manages to get back home safely. Thankfully, no blood was shed, and I never saw that woman, her kid, or her dog again. I made new routes to walk my dog, and when I passed that street, I still hear the dog barking in their house. A mother tells her kids to spit on us. So I'm going to preface the story a little by acknowledging that me and my friends also acted a little entitled, but looking back, I didn't think warranted the response we got. When I was about 15, me and my family went on holiday to a hotel in Spain. Whilst we were spent a lot of time in the hotel, and I made friends with a few other kids around my age that were staying there. In the lobby of the hotel, there was an area that had a bunch of computers and TVs set up with arcade-style coin slots that you could use. €1 would get you 15 minutes on that machine. Unfortunately, all the computers were broken, but they had one large flat-screen TV that had Street Fighter and Tekken on it. Oh, I like the Tekken game. We spent a fair amount of time playing on it, and this was my last day before we went home. We decided to pull all of our money together from our parents together and play as long as possible. Between the 3 of us, we managed to get 3 hours worth of time on the machine, which we kind of stupidly put it in at once. About an hour in, 2 other kids came over and asked how long we would be. We asked if they wanted to join us, if they can put in some money also, and they agreed. When we now played 5 of us in rotation. Another hour passed, and two entitled kids came along, two entitled kids. Both were maybe 7 years old and they wanted to play. We told them if they put in some money, we would let them play for a bit. The thing is, though, they didn't have any money and we weren't just going to let them play on our money. We asked if their parents were around to see if they could give them any. Big mistake. 5 minutes later, the entitled mum walks over and demands that we let our kids have a turn because you've been on it for 2 hours and we have been waiting. Before this point, we had not seen them waiting anywhere nearby. Me and a friend tried to explain to her that if she paid for kids to play, we would let them on for a bit, but for some reason she couldn't grasp the concept. She gets loud at us and kind of repeats the same complaints and is still unwilling to put any money in. So she turns to her kids and angrily says, "Spit on them!" and goes to get a drink. For the next half an hour, these kids tried to jump or climb onto chairs and so they could spit on us. At one point, my friend tried to cover their mouths to stop them, and the kid bit his finger with zero hesitation. Eventually, the kids gave up, and we kind of laughed, and entitled Mara stared daggers at us from across the room for the evening. The next morning, before I left, we saw the two entitled kids playing in the machine, so clearly the entitled mother was willing to pay then.